Okay, first, Javier, let me take a look here. Were you able to, or do you have questions about uploading the information from your handouts that we worked on week 1 to this page in Canvas? Because it looks like you haven't had a chance yet to upload that information.
I just upload the.
Okay, so if you could, do you have your handouts from the first week?
I have it in the
On your
computer.
Okay.
So I upload it.
Yeah, and just you could list it just as your classmates have, step 1 through 4.
Okay.
And just to move that information here to this page. And also, do you have any questions about adding the header and the footer to the template?
I actually just copy and paste the template.
Okay.
So I was like kind of confusing about the information that I had to put in there.
Okay. The only thing that you have to add, it looks like the formats are okay. If you go into Insert, Header, this will give you the option to insert the information in your running head.
Okay.
So this information here is called the running head, and you can add typically the first 5 or 6 words of your title will go there. And then you can add a page number here at the bottom by inserting a footer. Here, insert footer, and then you should be able to add the page numbers here at the bottom.
Okay.
Okay. So everything else, I would bring this down just a little bit, the text, kind of center it. But you can do, it's not a big deal. Here's where you're going to add your literature review, and I'm asking everyone to add, or go ahead and add your research questions here at the end of your literature review in this part. Okay, and then that way I can kind of refer to those research questions as you develop your literature review in this section.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and your research questions are coming directly from the step 1. If you go to the prompt after, because I want to find out, this second part is where you're getting your research questions. So I'll be looking at those research questions in terms of your step 1, specifically as to what you want to find out. So I want to find out how this happens. I want to find out why this happens. I want to find out when this happens. That information should be reflected directly from your research questions. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So we need to be thinking about now your literature review and the organization. And just to review very quickly, under modules for week 2, I have this link here, developing an argument. So hopefully you can refer to this, get some ideas about how you want to organize your work. Have you given it some thought how you want to start organizing your literature review?
Well, first of all, I want to speak about types of errors, and then like going to the correction, and also like you told me the previous class a little bit about motivation, also some topics about the book that you gave us 1 year ago, I think, about the discourse analysis.
Mm-hmm.
So I also want to include some of that information. So I remember that in one class you told us different types of how teachers correct, like the recast.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
which
right.
ones.
Do you have your research questions handy?
I was thinking about, I have 3 because remember like I have to change like the way of the thesis.
Okay.
So I wrote like which types of errors do teachers correct the most? I also have when do teachers correct students' mistakes or errors?
Okay, so which types of errors
Do teachers correct the most?
okay, and I'm assuming we're talking about just oral communication?
Yes, oral.
Okay. And so which type of errors, so this could be, are we looking at just grammar errors or pronunciation errors or vocabulary errors or just any type of errors?
I want to see if teachers focus on grammar or pronunciation, like the past tense.
Okay. In the second question?
And when do teachers correct students' errors?
So when do they correct?
Referring to if there is a moment that they wait in order to let students speak or if they in the right moment they tend to correct.
Okay, or if they do it individually or
In group,
or
like
in groups.
if they see that it's a common error.
Okay, all right. And the third?
The third one is how do students feel when they are corrected? I was kind of, I didn't know if to write that question or not because of the process that it is like more learning of the student.
No, that's okay.
Yes.
Because there's a difference between their perspective, how they feel about what's happening in the class, and you as a researcher investigating if they're learning or not, which is more based on behavior. So the difference being is this is okay because it's more about perspectives. What you're analyzing is perspectives or attitudes, not so much behavior or learning.
Okay.
So that's okay. So let's go ahead and include those for now. Let's include those three. That'll, I think, give us something to work with there. And we need to be thinking now, or you need to be thinking about the order in which you want to present your arguments. So remember that the thesis or your literature review is an argument, and you're forming an argument. That is, you're going to include claims and include different perspectives here. If you can get a chance to look at this,
yes.
I think this will help you kind of get some ideas about how you can organize your work. Now, what I would recommend is when you begin uploading your information in your literature review, use the headings and fill out the headings first if you can. Just try to get some concepts, and so that I can see how you want to organize your work, so that I can try to provide you feedback throughout the process. So if each week we can kind of look at how you're developing your literature review and make changes as necessary, so that you stay organized as much as possible, right? So you don't have to hopefully make a lot of changes at the end, that we can organize it from the beginning.
So can I use like the template, like kind of a brainstorming, outlining information?
Sure.
And
Absolutely. You can use any part of that document if you want to just create for just a space for yourself.
Yes.
And like notes, you can always go back and delete it. That's fine. Just label it so I see that you have designated this area. It can be at the very bottom or whatever. Just label it. And but you can also use the template itself. Like I already have like space for your headings, so you could just insert your headings there. And sometimes what I do is I include all the headings first and the subheadings.
Yes.
And it looks like a little outline, even though it's in the format of a document. And then I go in and insert the text and then move around if I need to change a heading or maybe consolidate a heading. You can do that.
Okay.
But you can also do that. So whatever is easiest for you. Now, so have you thought about how you want to organize your ideas? You mentioned that you want to start off by talking about the types of errors first.
Yes.
Now, what?
I think that I need to read like different info sources in order to give like a better order. So, well, going back to the questions, to the third one, that it says, how do students feel when they are corrected? I was thinking, how do students feel, or how do students react?
I would probably say feel, or what are their attitudes, or how do they feel? Because react is more about their behaviors, and you can talk about how they react. I think you can kind of do both. You can observe what they do, and you can also ask them how they feel. So for now, let's just leave it. The question is, how do they feel? But you can also include what you observed, because you're going to be going in and looking and observing the class and seeing what they do. So let's just leave it as how they feel, and then we can look at it a little bit later to see if we need to make any changes. The second question, what do you have there? When
do teachers correct students?
All right. Now, it's to your advantage to try to find primary research articles that you can kind of base a study around for your own study. So you can get some ideas about procedure, instruments, and so that we keep this from not getting too general. because for example, the types of errors. What types of errors are you going to talk about now? If you're right now, you mentioned that you want it to be general, and so the types might include vocabulary or grammar. It might be indirect or direct. A lot of it's going to depend on the type, the theory that you want. So when you look at your theory, when you're looking at other research, and you're determining what information to include in your literature review, always remember and ask yourself, okay, what am I going to be observing in my own research? Right? Don't talk about a concept in your literature review that you don't plan on looking for, at least looking for in your own research. Now, if it turns out that you don't find it in your research, fine, but ask yourself, how will I measure this and look for this, whatever type of error correction that you're talking about in your literature review, how will I look for this in my own research? Always ask yourself that throughout the whole process. Even though this is the theory, it has to be rooted in some sort of practical research-based exercise. So this is kind of the big difference between what you did last semester with your literature review and what you're doing this semester. We're going to do a literature review just like you did last semester, but now it's within the context of a practical research, something that you can actually do. So
more specific.
Right. So just keep that in mind. And so yeah.
Also, do you recommend me to look for some authors or some web pages in order to find more information? Because I was downloading information from Biblioteca Virtual.
Yeah. Yeah, you should be able to find, hopefully you can find what you need in the virtual library. In EBSCO, ERIC, Gale is another one. You can go outside the virtual library and go in and look in the Next ESOL journal. It's available online, and I think I included the link in Canvas where you can find that. And I included another link to the Learning Journal that I think is also available in the virtual library, and I included that link in Canvas. So between those, the Learning Journal is very good. In fact, this is what the Learning Journal is. It's very, very good. Has a lot of quantitative studies, but you can still use quantitative. You can use quantitative, qualitative, or mixed. It doesn't have to be the same type of research design that you want to do. Let's say you want to do qualitative, but you find a quantitative research, but based on the topics that you're talking about, it still may help you.
Okay.
All right. So I think hopefully between the Learning Journal, Mixed ESOL Journal, the journals available in the databases that are available in the virtual online library here at the university, you should be able to find what you need.
Enough information.
Right. I think what you need to just be very careful about is keeping it very specific.
Yes.
Okay. And if you start looking and you find a lot of information about just error correction when it comes to grammar, and you only want to focus on grammar, that would be even better.
Okay.
Because you just focus on grammar, because a lot of teachers they focus on grammar, right?
Yes.
So there may be a set of strategies for correcting grammar. Maybe they do it implicitly, explicitly. Maybe they teach overt and covert, but that they are giving certain strategies or implementing strategies based on those types of grammar. And so
maybe I just mentioning in general errors about another skills, but to focus on
or you just simply mention what types of errors, or how do teachers implement error correction techniques with regard to grammar, with regard to teaching and learning of grammar.
Okay.
And you just focus completely on grammar. Or maybe it's just vocabulary. But think in your mind, I mentioned grammar because I know a lot of teachers teach in one way or the other. They teach grammar, right?
Yes.
So it's either implicit or explicit. Vocabulary, hopefully they do that too, and you should be able to find techniques for teaching grammar, right? That's another option. But I think if you have an interest in one of those, I would suggest trying to focus on that. If you focus, on more, if you want to focus on, I don't know what your interests are here, which direction you want to take this, but it could be vocabulary and grammar maybe, but I just don't want you to get too many strategies here that you're dealing with.
Okay.
Right now, I look at this as kind of like it's an exploratory research where you're looking at kind of globally how many different strategies they're using, and so you just want to make sure that that the scope is not too general, that you're focused on a certain area of language or linguistics, so grammar, vocabulary, or focusing on certain speaking skills or learning skills, so listening, reading, writing, listening, speaking, if you want to provide context within strategies around those skill areas as an example. You're better off trying to pick one or two of those areas and then sticking to strategies within those and focusing just as you're doing. What types, when do they do it, and the student's beliefs. Focusing on those three aspects, but making sure that you're
focusing
not...
on one or two.
Yeah. So just take a look at the literature that you have. Think about the problems that you've faced as a teacher and a learner that you want to relate to, that you want to talk about, and decide how you want to do it. Okay. So what else? Do you have any other questions, concerns?
No, just
about
the biggest concern was like to get information, but what you told me to look in Canvas, I think I'm gonna get enough information.
You should be able to, because strategies is really wide, so that's why I keep stressing narrowing it down, because I think you're going to find tons of information. So don't just accept the first study that you come across. Ask yourself what direction you want to take. If you want to focus just on grammar, for example, or just vocabulary, or even a material if you're interested in certain types of materials. But just try to narrow it down and start developing your literature review in Google Drive, and go ahead and add these questions so I can kind of see how you're developing your ideas. So each week when we have our tutoring session, we can talk about the organization.
Okay.
We have 3 more weeks. We have until February 28th before this draft of the literature review is complete. So we have time, but try each week to upload whatever you can, so we can talk about the organization. We'll be talking about the organization between now and February 28th.
Yes.
How is it organized? And I'll be asking, how are you forming your argument? What is your argument around your thesis statement? Okay. As far as the introduction and conclusion, don't worry about those until kind of at the end. I would write out your thesis statement, like one sentence, write out your research questions, and then begin developing your sections. And then later at the end, you can go back and add the introduction and the conclusion.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions or doubts about using Canvas or accessing?
No, in case I have a question when uploading information, I'm going to send you an email.
Okay. And again, I think, and also go ahead and add, if you could, those 4 steps for the handout, the information from the handout. So, all right. Okay, Javier. So we'll see you next Monday, right? 11:30, correct? And if you do have any doubts or questions, see me before, right?
Yes.
If you're not sure about some articles that you're coming across, if you have doubts about whether or not the articles will help you or not, feel free to let me know.
Okay.
Okay.
So thank you, teacher.
All right. You're welcome. See you later.
Do I close the door or?
No, that's okay.